Welcome to Am Yisrael. In Parashat Noaḥ, the flood was more than a deluge of water. It was a storm of confusion. And in that darkness, Boré Olam revealed something wondrous, that every being on earth is guided by an instinct, a quiet whisper from heaven showing it how to survive. But sometimes Boré Olam asks us to rise above instinct and to live instead by conscience. The Torah tells us in Pasuk, Meha'of liminehu umin ha'behema limina, from every one of the birds according to its specific kind, mikol remes ha'adama liminehu, and from every animal according to its kind. And the pasuk continues, pay attention, shnai mikol yavo eleha lahachayot, two of each shall come to you to keep alive. Now at first glance, Noach's task seems effortless. The animals, faddal, they're going to come to him. Yet only a few pasukim later, the Torah twists just a drop and says, Mikol ha-behema ha-Torah tikach lecha shiv'ah. Of every clean animal, you shall take 7 pair. If they were coming on their own, why was Noach told, go and take them? The Ramban unveils the secret. The non-kosher species, those whose purpose was simple survival, they were driven by an instinct. They felt danger and they came running toward the teva. But the kosher ones that were destined later for korbanot, they didn't. For Boré Olam in his uprightness doesn't place in any creature an instinct that leads to its own harm, even when that harm would ultimately bring holiness. That, says the Ramban, is the signature of yashrut, of divine fairness. Boré Olam is upright, even with the beasts of the field. He gives every being the inner pull that serves its good, never what destroys it. And if Boré Olam himself is so compassionate that he won't cause suffering to an animal in the name of Kedusha, how much more so must we be upright with one another, never using religion as an excuse to wound, never pursuing holiness at the cost of another's peace. The Netziv teaches that the Avot were called Yesharim. They were upright. Why? Because they were decent before men. Their piety was gentle. Their righteousness had grace. They lived holiness that never humiliated, faith that never crushed. To walk with Boré Olam is not only to obey his will, but to reflect his fairness, to live with humility, compassion, and decency. And sometimes that very yashrut, that moral instincts, awakens inside a human heart, not in the wilderness, but in Moscow, Russia. Just a couple of years ago, there was a woman. Her name was Irina Dislevsky. She studied medicine for 7 years and neurosurgery, for another 7, and 14 years of service finally culminated in one day called Diploma Day. But the government chose the date of Yom Tov Shavuot, and by Russian law, whoever fails to collect the diploma that day, you forfeit it forever. Even the ill had to show up. Absence meant beginning again from year 1. Irina had only recently begun to keep Torah mitzvot. Shabbat had entered her home, kashrut her kitchen, emunah in her eyes. Torn and trembling, she turned to Rav Berol Lazar, the chief rabbi of Russia. Rabbi, she whispered, what do I do? I can't travel, but they require my signature. So the rabbi thought for a moment. He said, perhaps just rent a hotel nearby and just walk. But if I walk, Rabbi, they're still going to demand a signature from me on Yom Tov. He grew quiet, and then he said, if that's the case, I can't take it. Her breath stopped. 14 years of effort vanished in a single word. And then she straightened out. She says, you know what? I decided to keep Torah mitzvot. I'm not going to violate Yom Tov for a diploma. On Shavuot, she stayed at home. Her classmates celebrated. Her diploma was lost. Days later, she actually pled to the Ministry of Education. Fell on silent ears. They flat out refused. She simply said, Boré Olam, you give me the strength. I choose you. Months passed. Chanukah night. The Kremlin shimmered, cameras, diplomats, the grand menorah. Rav Lazar rose to speak. He told the story of the Hashmonaim, and then his voice softened. Let me tell you about a modern miracle. A young Jewish woman who chose truth over triumph. And he told Irina's story there, and among the listeners sat none other than President Vladimir Putin. He turned to an aide, "Eta pravda?" Meaning, is this true? Yes, Mr. President. In a lightning bolt, Putin summoned the Minister of Education. Bring me her diploma today. The very next morning, Irina Dislevsky was called to the Kremlin. And there, before the world's cameras, the president himself handed it to her. Listen to this. The only citizen in Russian history to receive a diploma directly, and if I may, from the head of state, President Vladimir Putin. Soon after her, Irina went on to make Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael. She became a successful neurosurgeon at Shaarei Tzedek in Yerushalayim, and she went on to save countless Jewish lives. Ladies and gentlemen, the animals of Noach's world, they were moved by instinct. They had a whisper from heaven that said, live. But a Bat Yisrael moved by something infinitely higher, a command that said, be true. When the flood waters of comfort rise and the tide of the compromise pulls at every soul, Boré Olam doesn't ask us to float, he asks us to stand. Noach built the teva of wood, it saved a generation of water. Irina built the teva of emunah, it saved a generation from forgetting who we are. And when she stood alone on that Shavuot morning, while the world chose diplomas and honor and reason, the heavens leaned in a bit closer, because in that instant, one solitary Jewish woman proved what the Ramban taught, that even in a world of floods, the Yashar still walks with Boré Olam, and somewhere beyond the Kremlin's marble walls, the same voice that once guided the beasts to Noach whispered again across the entire country, Kol habruim yodim eich lachayot. All of my people know how to live. Aval ami yodim, my Jewish people, eich lachayot li. They know how to cling to me. All the creations know how to live, but my nation, they alone know how to live for me. That is the heartbeat of Am Yisrael, the pulse that has never drowned, the light that no empire has ever dimmed. Because instinct may very well preserve life, but emunah in bitachon preserves forever. Mika Am Yisrael. Shabbat Shalom u'Mevorach.